Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema podcast YouTube channel. We're continuing with the class of 1999 with a sports movie by the always controversial Oliver Stone. And I will admit this is probably going to be a controversial one for me right now as we discuss the football drama Any Given Sunday. Helping me to talk about the movie and break down the movie is a friend of mine who you heard him earlier when we talked about American Pie. We've also talked about other films over the years, and he is back to join me to talk about Oliver Stone's film. It is Marv Dickey. Thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome. And being that I am now in the podcast and I'm your third string co-host, I'm going to have to ask you to call me Steamin' Marv Beeman going ahead for this podcast.
Schemin' Mark Beeman.
Marv Beeman.
Okay.
Marv. My name's Marv.
Okay.
You called me Marv.
Marv Beeman. Okay. Schemin' Marv Beeman.
Yeah, okay. That joke didn't land very well, did it?
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, I understood at least the punch up to it. I just missed for some reason. I said your name wrong for some reason because we are talking about a sports movie where the third string quarterback goes into the game. And that third string quarterback in this case is played by Jamie Foxx. This was one of his first big starring roles. And this was before Collateral, before he really became a star, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I'd say before he reached the A-list, because he was in like movies such as like Booty Call.
Yeah.
Before this.
Well, and he was on In Living Color before this too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, and Jamie Foxx's character gets into the movie pretty quickly. In the opening football game that Stone starts in on. I know this is based on a book by a former NFL player. It's kind of an interesting choice for Oliver Stone to decide that he's going to go with a football drama. I'm not completely sure if I feel like that was a good choice for him. When did you first watch it?
I have a theory here.
Okay.
He's always wanted to live out his dream as a football commentator. So this was the only way he was going to be able to live this out as an appearance, as a cameo of sorts.
Yeah, this is true. He does play a football commentator in this movie.
That's all it was. That's the only thing that made him do this movie.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm kind of baffled by this choice from him because I mean he was coming off of a decade that started off with The Doors, JFK, Heaven and Earth,
Born on the 4th of July,
Killers,
right? Huh? Born on the 4th of July?
Well, Born on the 4th of July was 89, but yeah, it was right before The Doors. The Doors, JFK, Heaven and Earth, Nixon, and U-Turn, which I actually really like. I really like as a gritty little noir thriller from him. I've always been a fan of that one. And then he culminated the decade with this, and I'm not gonna, and yeah, I'm kind of a bit baffled by the choice.
It's maybe he sat down, he read the book, and he was just a fan of it and thought he would do well to transfer it to the big screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, from my understanding, I mean, the book is, let me see. Oh, it doesn't give credit on IMDb as to who the book is from. But the book was, it was written by a former player, and it basically, and you can kind of tell that throughout the movie. This isn't, and this is a movie. It's kind of funny because of the fact that it's a movie that deals with a lot of sports cliches, but at the same time, it plays it considerably more seriously than I
Yeah,
think pretty much any other football movie has.
but to be honest, I've been in those environments, the sports environments,
Mm-hmm.
and those cliches are dead on. The sports is a big cliche of itself.
Oh yeah.
Every post game interview from every coach is, depending on winning or losing, it's the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just worded differently.
Oh no, you're absolutely right about that. And I mean, you can. It's a lot easier now to see it with the internet. Like every team basically, archives their, after game press conferences and through the week and stuff like that. So I mean, you can basically see them. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like sports are like just filled with cliches. I will admit it's like part of the reason why I'm kind of enjoying the idea of talking about this movie is because of the fact that I am unapologetically a fan of the underdog sports drama or the underdog sports movie. I have a particular weakness when it comes to the underdog sports movie, and they're and it doesn't matter the sport, preferably football, because that's my first love. But at the same time, you look at something like even ones that sort of go outside the grain, like Moneyball and Draft Day. Um, it's one of those things where I still get that excitement whenever I see something in that genre that I appreciate and I enjoy. And
Oh,
this is
same, absolutely.
yeah, and
It's
this is
it gives you that heartwarming, that it just makes you feel good. Except for Rudy, because I didn't care for that.
oh, I love Rudy. I love Rudy. Um,
I
but
grew up a U of M fan.
yeah.
I was trained to hate Notre Dame.
Oh, okay. Well,
So there's that.
yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's like I love a good sports movie, underdog sports movie, and it's because of the fact that to a certain extent, I kind of feel like an underdog in my life, and it's that part of it where it's like you can achieve something beyond what you're expected to achieve. I think is ultimately the kick that I get out of these movies, and I think a lot of people get out of these movies. And even if a movie is not necessarily great, I think if it can land that punch, it's a successful one. I'm not quite sure if Any Given Sunday lands that punch though.
To me, it did. See, here's my experience with Any Given Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I rented it in like 2000. I believe it came out in theaters late '99.
Yes.
Like a week before Christmas or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I rented it as soon as it hit, like it was Blockbuster.
Mhm.
Like there was the wall of Any Given Sunday, like VHS tapes.
Right.
So I grabbed one. I was like, oh yeah, this is that Oliver Stone movie, and I dug Oliver Stone. I haven't seen most of his movies, but what I have seen, I've really enjoyed.
Mhm.
So I was like, ooh, football, Oliver Stone, let's give this a shot. And I absolutely loved it. I drove it over to my friend's house. We watched it together. I was like 3 days late because I was busy sharing it with other friends.
Yeah.
That first time I rented it, I watched it probably 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it each and every time. And I bought the DVD, I would say, in 2005. And I watched that probably 2 or 3 times over the next year. So like my last time I watched it was probably 2006.
Okay.
Until today. I watched it this morning.
Okay.
And boy, does the rose tint of my memories. I don't know if it's the rose, the thinking back.
Yeah.
Maybe it could have been just the way football, because I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to all your fans out there that may not like them, But I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan, and I every week, since 2006 when I last saw the movie, when it was kind of relevant to me, and I still enjoyed it. I've been following it and following, and I think it's just the evolution of real football compared to the fictional on-screen football that's locked in that 1998, 1999 mentality. It's just, I don't know if it's that, or if I was a younger person and I didn't understand it very well. But this movie isn't as good as I remember it being.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently, probably the last couple of years, I had gotten in discussions about the best sports films ever, and I would go to Any Given Sunday as number one. And I'm sad to say, after watching today, I'm gonna have to rethink that list. I think basketball is gonna be number one.
and I've actually, wow, we are very much on the same wavelength, because of the fact that when I was thinking about what we would talk about as far as this movie, basketball was one that came to mind. And the funny thing, and part of that, and certainly Oliver Stone did not necessarily intend for that to be the case, but the funny thing is, when you look at some of the things this movie is dealing with as far as story-wise, like the idea of the team possibly being moved to a different city, and you talk about being a Green Bay Packers fan. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I have very vivid memories of when that happened to the Browns, and the anger that elicited in the in the city and the fans worldwide for the team. But you can't help but think of that amazing opening sequence in basketball, where it's talking about just the evolution of sports, and one of the funniest things is talking about all of the moves that the sports teams had made.
Absolutely. The Minnesota Lakers moved to LA where there are no lakes.
The New Orleans Jazz moved to Utah where they don't allow music.
Don't allow music.
And but yeah, that's a movie that completely came to mind when I was thinking about this before the podcast, and yeah, I mean basketball is I think it's undervalued in a few different it's undervalued in a few different careers and genres. It's undervalued when you talk about Trey Smith and Matt Stone, or Trey Parker and Matt Stone, sorry. And their trajectory, because they didn't direct it.
No, it was wasn't it a Zucker movie?
Yeah, it was David Zucker.
It was David. Okay.
Yeah, he directed, but wasn't ZAZ. It wasn't the whole team. It was just Zucker. But it's underrated in that career as far as Zucker's career, and it's also just underrated for how good of a sports movie it is in following the cliches.
Okay, while we're on it, I was going to say the best pairing for Any Given Sunday is basketball.
Yeah.
Basketball, like we're talking about the cliches, it's a satirical stance and a mocking parody of sports and the business of the sports industry. And the foundation of Any Given Sunday is almost every possible cliche that you can imagine for the sport of football. Yeah. So they make a good pairing.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like I never saw this movie in theaters. I do remember when it came out, and that was during the holiday season in 1999. I didn't go see it. I don't know, for some reason I probably I don't know why I never got to it. I just for some reason never got to it. I think I watched it years ago, but I honestly don't remember. So the viewing that I did a few weeks ago, I'm basically taking as my first viewing of the movie.
Fresh eyes.
With fresh eyes. And one of the first things that kind of frustrated me about the movie is the fact that it goes about 35 minutes into the movie before you really get any sense of the direction of the story. Like the first 30 minutes of this movie, which in the director's cut form is about 2.5 hours long, is basically a football game with the Miami Sharks, and which are coached by Al Pacino. You see Dennis Quaid, the veteran, successful quarterback, go down. You see his backup go down, and then you see Jamie Foxx's third stringer come in, and he has a bit of success, but it's too late for that game. They don't win it. And then it's not until the scene where Al Pacino and Cameron Diaz is the owner, where we really get any sense of exposition with regards to this team and what any stakes are in this movie. And I think that's kind of it's I'm kind of curious as to why Oliver Stone did that, because of the fact that it's like, usually, I mean, even a movie like, the one that would come out the next year, The Replacements, that starts on a football game too, but you get a sense of what's going on in both the larger league as well as with the team in general through the commentary by John Madden and Pat Summerall during that game. And you don't really get that here. It's basically, Oliver Stone's basically thrusting you into a football game. And from a narrative standpoint, it kind of starts the movie cold for me.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's pretty much, hey, this is football movie. Here's a game of football. Oh, and meet our cast. Here's our lovely cast. Here's Al Pacino. Here's Dennis Quaid. And by the way, I want to see them because we never see the second string quarterback come back from his knee injury.
Yeah,
I want to see his movie. I want to see like a 30-minute short film of what happened to that guy.
Yeah,
but it's very much, it's a meet and greet, so to speak, for the first half hour of the film.
No, that's
it's like, look at all these stars.
Yeah,
look at everybody we got, and including Oliver Stone on the commentary.
Mm-hmm. And I know that this. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that for some reason it irritated me to see Oliver Stone doing that, and he was playing it like way over the top. His arms were flailing about.
You mean the
commentator role during the game.
Yeah.
He has a great voice for it, but it's just, I was all like, calm, like, tone it down. Cut. Oliver, cut.
Yeah.
Tone it down a bit. About half that.
Mm-hmm. No, and you're absolutely right about that. And it's like this movie I know has been, it's been acclaimed by people for the football action in the movie. But like that particular game, I got a headache watching the cinematography during that first game. Now, I mean, I know some of it.
That's one of my notes.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of it is kind of deliberate because of the fact that you do see the defensive star played by Lawrence Taylor's perspective, and it's setting up the fact that he's going to be, he's really putting his health in danger with concussions, with neck injuries later on in the movie. But at the same time, there's so much, like, you don't really get a sense of geography with regards to the game in this movie. And it's like, say what you will about The Replacements, it's like you kind of get the impression that at least they understand, the geography of shooting sports.
Yes. That was one of my notes, was the editing is like, the editor was like on crack.
Yeah.
And it's just, people complain about the Blair Witch Project making it nauseous. This movie is completely nauseating at times during the segments with the football games.
Yeah.
Because you go from settled in, or then a handicap, and then you go to like the shaky effect, and then it's all over the place. It's like a manic way of editing, and I didn't like it because I'm not getting nauseated, but I can see how people can get a little dizzy watching this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that was absolutely one of the most irritating parts of this movie for me. Also, I will say they don't show commercials in the stadium. Like that was one of the other notes I had at the beginning of this movie, where it's like, why are they showing commercials in the stadium? They don't do that.
Oh, right. The metrics.
Yeah,
Metrics,
something like
whatever
that.
was, power bars or something.
I mean, yes, you have
RX.
ads. Yes, you'll have ads around the stadium. You'll have like sponsored by, logos and stuff like that, but that's it. You don't have
Right.
actual commercials playing on the on the
Big screen.
big screens. And it's like, really?
Big rich ones. It's. I can't put my finger on it, but it's odd. It's odd way of and it was that way back then. I didn't go to any pro football games in late '90s. Maybe they did show a couple commercials here or there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the most recent football game I will have been to at the time was 1995. And yeah, they didn't show ads or anything like that. Maybe it was something that was more prevalent in the late 90s, but yeah, it was like the football games I've been to since, yeah, that does not happen.
Okay. I'm curious to know if now I wonder if that metrics, the METRX, the METREC or RX, whatever. I wonder if that was a real product back then.
I don't know what product was it?
It was like a power bar or like a diet drink or protein shake or something. I'm not even positive.
I don't know.
Willie Beeman does he does a commercial for it.
Yeah.
Later in the movie, like when they're doing the kind of montage segment of him doing his Steamin' Willie Beeman music video.
Right.
And then it's also part commercial for metrics.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got thoughts on that as well. Although actually not necessarily thoughts in a bad way with that, but just and I was messaging you during my watch of it.
Right.
And it's like all I could think of, and we'll jump ahead a little bit because of the fact that all of that basically there's so much stuff that seems to happen during the bye week in the timeline of this movie. Like all of that stuff would happen in the off season. It wouldn't happen during in between games in season. Regardless of how big the star person makes.
Right. Not to mention the whole team showed up for the they're giving the mayor a check for the DARE program for $250,000 and it's like I was like, wait, this isn't a kind of gala that they have on their bye weeks.
Yeah.
This isn't a mid-season this isn't a mid-season event. This is like March 30th.
Exactly.
That's the type of event that happens in March and April, even May.
Now, I mean,
it's everything seems a bit off.
Yeah, I mean, like the note I had was an entire off season happens during the bye week, and that it's like, yeah, look, there's a lot of things that can happen during a bye week, but the fact of the matter is, not all of this can happen in a bye week. It's just completely absurd. But one of the things I will give Stone credit for, and I think one of the things he does kind of do somewhat well in this movie, is that he basically sets up as a theme sort of like old school players versus new school players, and sort of a changing of the guard. And you see that in particular with the quarterbacks of Dennis Quaid, played by Dennis Quaid and Jamie Foxx, and just sort of how they go about their business. And that's one of the things I will say I do actually kind of like about this movie.
Oh, I'm with you there. I really think some of these characters are really well developed.
Yeah.
Their story arcs, their character arcs don't make sense sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just to skip ahead, Cameron Diaz's character, how she represents the money machine that is all professional sports here in America, possibly elsewhere around the world, like the soccer teams, football teams,
right?
In Europe and whatnot. She represents that money machine. She's that new. She's getting the hang of it. She wants to take over the family business, so to speak, and make as much money as possible, whether it means abandoning cities to move to another one, and then she basically gets humbled by the end, and it just doesn't matter anymore. And then all of a sudden she's loving the sport for the sport. And I'm like, all right, this is a bit little ham-fisted.
Yeah.
Like she would still be kind of that quote unquote business bitch. Like just she'd be getting the lawyers on the phone trying to figure out what's going on with this meeting that the owners want to have with her.
Right.
She wouldn't have just like kind of slunked over in her seat and been all like, I want to eat some cheese and crackers with my mommy now and watch the game.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I just don't think that her character arc. But I think the characters, all of them, and you could tell it was written from an inside point of view because each position, like the running back, LL Cool J, to the quarterbacks, to the defensive, to the doctors, I really think they were well written.
Yeah, and the doctors were another thing that I really liked when it comes to like sort of old school thinking about sports versus new school thinking with James Woods and Matthew Modine's characters, and the way those characters are basically antagonists based on, James Woods he's a realist because of the fact that he's like, these guys just want to play. And Matthew Modine is thinking about their safety and thinking about, well, what is he going to do after he's done playing? And, it's like if Lawrence Taylor's character gets another serious injury, there's a possibility he could die.
Yeah, there on the field.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that's really interesting about this. And yeah, you're right. Like, there's so many characters in this movie, and the thing is, 2.5 hours is a long sports movie, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way. Stone does keep this thing moving.
That's true.
I think the big issue though is that like some of the, like you said, the Cameron Diaz's characters are just isn't really well fleshed out, and you're absolutely right. Like she's a bit naive. If she's written a bit naive as a character when it comes to, what do these owners want to talk to me about and stuff like that by the end, and she's not like thinking how we would normally see it play out in real time, where it's like, I've got to figure out what's going on. She's like, okay, I'm just gonna watch the game and stuff like that. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. The players and Pacino's coach, and Pacino's good in this. He's all right.
Well, that's what he's like. He's pretty much written for that late scene. He's great. He's great when he's really mellow, but he's really great when he's screaming and yelling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of the best of both worlds, Pacino, because I mean, you get to see the over the top Pacino, but you also get to see a weathered, more subdued Pacino as well. Like,
yes, I think some of his best acting in this movie is when he's in a bar. Yeah, especially with Jim Brown, and they're just reflecting and just like getting a little drunk and tipsy, and I think some of those are the best, more humanized scenes in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean even the scene where he has Jamie Foxx's character over for a meal,
and jambalaya.
That scene is just fantastic.
Oh, with the cut in with the Ben-Hur and everything, and then he's telling him, you just need another work, work hand, avoid.
Well, I'm not a fan of
racial stereotypes.
I'm not a fan of the cut-ins with Ben-Hur. I'm not a fan of that.
You think it was a little heavy-handed?
Yeah, just a little bit. But it's Oliver Stone, so it's like heavy-handedness is kind of, par for the course with him. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of that, but just the interplay between Pacino and Foxx and and the fact that those characters are starting to bond. And you kind of see that bond that's going to pay off somewhat absurdly in the end. With the very, very end. But at the same time, you see these two really start to feel each other out as individuals. and as people who are ultimately in this together. And
Yeah.
and yeah, you're right. His scenes with Jim Brown are terrific. Even his scenes with Elizabeth Berkley are
Oh
really
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, he's more human.
Yeah.
And instead of that head coach, like that's in the locker room screaming. And I love the beginning of the movie, and I believe it was his halftime speech. He it's like he's struggling to find things to yell about.
Yeah.
He like looks around for a second, and then he's just like, defense, you got to make tackles. I don't know what to say, but I got to be inspiring here.
Yeah.
Like he's struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then of course he's got great inspirational scene, the speech at the in halftime, or it's either halftime or it's at the beginning of the last game that we see. But yeah,
it was the halftime, because that's when he played cap the whole first half, and then Cameron Diaz storms in, kicking the door in and saying, "You're playing Willie," even though he just said he's going to put him in.
Yeah, and Willie bails him out in there, and it's I mean, there's such a great, like, there really are some really strong performances, and yeah, Pacino, it's not even the best performance Pacino gave that year. He was fantastic in The Insider. Michael Mann's The Insider, which was also 99, but it really is it's an underrated performance. I think it's a performance that people don't really think about with him.
Right. I honestly think I love him when he's yelling, but he does his best work when he's just solemn.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of he's speaking the words, but his eyes usually tell the story that he's conveying with his words. And that's why he's one of the greatest actors of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he I mean, you look at Heat too, which is another great example of Pacino when he goes big, and also when he's a bit more subtle, and how he plays both of those in the course of a movie. It's really just it's fun to see him. It's fun to really see him channel. It's fun to see him in a role that allows him to really really do something that gives a lot of depth and gives a lot of different character shadings of a character, and this is a good example of that.
Yeah, he's awesome, but we won't talk about Jack and Jill.
Well, yeah, I mean,
when he officially changes his name to Dunkachino. What's my name? Dunkachino. No thanks.
Yeah. Nope. Nobody say he was infallible. Nope. Nobody
right,
say
and that goes back to the old. It goes back to the old football cliche that, like, we're talking about football cliches of the player that just hangs on a little too long.
Yeah.
gets that paycheck, that one last year. If he can just hang in there one more year for that paycheck.
Right. Yeah, and
then there's Jack and Jill for him.
Yeah, we already talked about the visual aspect of this movie, and yeah, it's the games are just so between the cinematography and the editing, it's just chaos. And I mean that type of style worked really well in JFK, certainly during a lot of the things he did in that movie. Natural Born Killers I was less enthusiastic about, but it's been about 25 years since I've seen it, so we'll see how I feel when I do eventually rewatch that movie.
Right.
But yeah, here it's like you really need to be able to understand the stakes in the game. You really need to understand sort of strategy of what's going on in the game, and you really don't. And I mean, it's one of the big weaknesses this movie has is that it just from a storytelling standpoint, as far as the actual games, there's in the beginning of the movie, like, you have this one football scene, they're in a football game and it's like it's clear as day, beautiful, sunny out, and then I guess after halftime it's night all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that can't happen, but it's like
Right.
you don't at least give us a progression.
Yeah, it's like the game started at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
and halftime was like at 7:30, and then at 8 o'clock when they came out, it was pitch black.
right.
Yeah, that was that was very noticeable for me too. It's the way they treat football, and we do a lot of fans do too. They treat it like war.
Yeah,
and it is war, and it's about territory and getting to a goal.
Yeah.
But when the priest is giving his prayers, I believe it's in the very beginning, right after the game where they lost 4 in a row or whatever. He talks about how there's no atheists in foxholes, and
yeah.
this is my playbook, and it's all, I'm like, oh boy, it's that whole football is war thing.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there is listening and they're like, man, I that's a good point. Go to look up George Carlin's Football versus Baseball. And it's kind of like Any Given Sunday took that routine and we'll like just spread it all out. We'll expand on that idea of the football being war, and then we'll take ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
And go.
And I think that's the biggest problem with this movie is that it does take itself way too seriously. Like yes, you can take the game of football seriously, but at the same time, you need a certain degree of levity, and I don't think that's there in this movie. And Oliver Stone is not necessarily a funny director. He like even U-Turn, which I really like, is a black comedy, but it's dark. It's pitched really dark, and like there are scenes in this movie, like the Lauren Holly as Dennis Quaid's wife. She's got a scene where it's like she's basically berating Dennis Quaid's character because he wants to hang it up, and I'm like, what are you saying? You don't care about your husband's health or his well-being?
I think that's
like
just
comedy.
But it also, I think her character shows her true colors in that moment.
Yeah,
she was with him because of who he was and his paycheck. The fame and the fortune is what she was in it for.
Yeah,
she's been the head. I think they call them wags, or the wives and girlfriends of all this. She was like the head wag. Yeah, she was the she was in charge of all the I'm sure of the plannings for some of the women's events that goes along with being a wife and girlfriend of the players, and I'm sure she led the box where they all sit. She was the lead, and she wasn't willing to give that up so easily, like he was willing. And it wasn't easy for him either. I'm sure it's not easy for any athlete to realize this is it. I've reached my peak. Yeah, maybe long ago, or maybe this is it. But I'm done.
And it's a wonderful piece of acting by Quaid too. Like he is really good in this.
Yes, almost too good for it.
Yeah.
and I love that his character doesn't swear. Yeah. He always said, the gee whiz and the dang and the hex. Yeah. I kind of like that. It reminds me of he's like this corn-fed white boy from that was raised by his mama to watch his mouth and have manners. And he's dealing with this. That whole scene just like irritates the hell out of me. And she gets like physically violent with him. Yeah. At the thought of him like wanting to. She's like, you got 2 or 3 years left in you. Yeah. And it's like, wow, she really just wants to milk whatever's left of his career for whatever her own agenda is. Yeah. That's time for a divorce, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm not. That scene's absurd in just so many ways. And yeah, you're right. She does start hitting him, and it's like, really? This is like I okay. I mean, okay. I mean, I guess most sports movies have the supportive girlfriend and stuff like that. So maybe you want to go the other direction with it. It just doesn't really it doesn't really work for this film. I mean, it kind of does because there is a certain it feels like there is a certain cynicism to this film about sports and the people involved with sports to a certain degree, but it's only to a certain degree. I mean, once you get to know Jamie Foxx's character, once you get to know Pacino's character, and even Lawrence Taylor's character. I mean,
Yeah.
Taylor's really good in this movie, and
he's great.
And the scene where Modine gives him his diagnosis, it's as well acted as anything in this movie.
Yeah, because when he says when Al Pacino says, you'll have to sign a waiver, he knew exactly, like, and there was just like when Lawrence Taylor just like exhales and tears start coming out of his eyes, starts welling up.
Yeah,
like he's like, just show me where to sign. You get that feeling like he's been in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because he's not a professional actor. He had the Water Boy under his credits before this one, I think.
Yeah, I mean he's only one of the greatest football players who ever lived.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and he doesn't get as much credit as he used to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I mean, not to get on football, professional football, but I mean that could be part of, because I think he had off the field issues that were part of it. But yeah, I mean, as a player, he is absolutely beyond reproach. I mean, he is one of the greats.
Yeah. Did he ever get a ring? I know he was.
Yeah, he was part of at least the '86 Giants.
He was also part of the Giants that beat the Bills on their.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I don't remember when he retired, but yeah, he was. Yeah,
I think it was like 95 or 96.
Yeah. So
maybe even 94, in that area, mid 90s.
So yeah, I mean he's phenomenal. He's one of the all-time greats. But yeah, he is really good in that, and it's great. Like, I forgot how many people were in this. It's like I forgot Matthew Modine was in it. I forgot Aaron Eckhart was in it.
Aaron Eckhart was one that blew my mind.
Yeah,
I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's the guy from Thank You for Not Smoking.
Yeah, I mean, there he was at the time. He wasn't as well known.
Right.
But yeah, John C. McGinley's in it.
I was waiting to talk about him.
Yeah.
I want to talk about him. Boy, is he one of my favorite characters in this movie.
Uh-huh.
He represents fans.
Yeah.
And fans, not only just journalists, but fans themselves. He will talk crap about the coach, the players, and all. But as soon as like they're in the same room with them, he's kissing their ass. Like that whole Jamie Foxx interview where he's all like, "Hey, pound it, give me some love," and all that.
Yeah.
He's like, "No, I'm cool, and he's like, "Yeah, you are cool." And he's over the moon happy about being in the same room as Willie Beeman. But meanwhile, when he's not in the same room, he's like he's just constantly typing at his computer and trash about the team and how awful they are and what's going on, what's bad, what can be fixed. And that's us as Americans. And I think the comedian Jim Jeffries said it best. Is like, in America, we love to talk about our sports. We talk about it all week long, and then we talk about it until the pre-show starts. And that's when on TV when they start talking about the football. Then the football happens. Then at halftime we talk about the football that just happened. And then the second half happens. And at the post-game show we talk about the football that just happened just now. And then all week long we talk about half the weeks on last week's game, and then half the week on the upcoming week's game. And I'm guilty all day about doing that with people.
Oh God, so
I just don't do it mostly on.
Oh God,
but
yeah.
It's his. John C. McGinley is like, to me, he's just this perfect ball of sports journalist and fan all in one, because we'll talk garbage, we'll talk trash, but if when it comes to it, they do well. We're praising them. They couldn't have done any better. It's great choices. And even at the end, when Al Pacino leaves Miami for the new Albuquerque expansion team. He's like, he's right, man. I'm gonna miss him. You know, that crap.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just like fans. Like when McCarthy last year left Green Bay, I was like, man, I'm gonna miss him, but it's time for him to go.
Yeah.
You know, I get it, but I'm gonna miss him.
Oh God, I mean, you know me. I mean, you could. I have so many takes on Hugh Jackson's time in Cleveland. Like it's such a it's such a roller coaster. Like, oh, I'm so excited we got him. I'm so excited we got him. Oh, I'm so glad he's finally gone. But I mean, that one's a little bit more understandable because our records seem to be considerably worse than we ever expected it would be. But at the same time, it's like, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I see it. You know, it's during games. You see it on social media. It's during games. Like I'm on Twitter constantly on Sundays and during games, and you see it. Like it's. You know, and
it's every. The only time I participate vocally is when the game's over,
right?
Or if it's a Bears-Packers game.
Yeah.
If it's the Bears and Packers, I have like 2 Packer fans on my friends list and about 100 Bears fans. So, and I grew up in Bear Country.
Yeah.
I grew up in Bear Country, and I chose the wrong team as they say, and I say, hey, I don't have to look back to 1985 to celebrate a victory. Of a Super Bowl, but yeah, it's just John C. McGinley is just so good as that character that he encompasses. And it's well written because it sees everything to do with people who don't play the game and are in the business, but they have livelihoods, at stake, to themselves, and it's amazing that sports journalists, they get to earn a living talking about what they love, and I think it's great. And I was a big fan of John C. McGinley in this movie.
Yeah,
I more so now. I think because I've experienced social media for the last 10 years, maybe almost 15 years, and it makes more sense to me now than it ever did me back in 2000 when I first saw this movie.
Oh yeah,
because it was just newspapers back then for me when I was looking up sports scores. I go to the newspaper.
Yeah.
Way back when I was old, when I was young.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like we're so much, even if you can be with social media now and the internet, you can be so much more tuned into local, the local beat coverage of a team, even if you're not in that area. And I mean that's a big. So yeah, I mean you get that larger perspective of what it's like, and it's like you can see that dynamic between like beat report, because he's essentially a beat reporter. He
absolutely.
But he nowadays he'd probably be cast as more of a Colin Cowherd type person or Stephen A. Smith, but at the same time you get the idea that he's sort of a local beat reporter, because then it wouldn't, if he were national, it wouldn't matter if Pacino's character left Miami for Albuquerque. He'd still be covering him, just not in a different location. So yeah. But yeah, I mean you do see it on social media, and it's like so much more prevalent now. Yeah, there are a lot of things that Oliver Stone does well as far as this. It just overall I don't necessarily think this is a particularly good example of a genre. And it honestly comes down to the actual games. Like the games don't really have, like the last game in this movie, the ending of the last game in this movie is just bizarre. Like, granted, I mean, we've seen ends of games that are, kind of nuts, but at the same time, this one kind of just borders on the surreal.
Yeah. It's by the way, I really like the Aztec. No, it's not the Aztecs. Who did they play in that fun game? Do you remember?
I thought it was Dallas.
Dallas. It was the Dallas Knights, I think it was.
Yeah.
But I really like how they're the middle of the field, that whole like 10-yard zone was painted their logo. I really like that.
Yeah.
A team in the NFL should do that. But yeah, it was like they were ignoring football rules and regulations and how it actually would play out.
Yeah.
For the sake of trying to express the drama of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That was my feelings. My takeaway from it was they're like, this wouldn't really actually happen in a game. Maybe it would, but we're gonna take a chance. But that you'll be all like, biting your nails and edge of your seat, like, oh, will they do it? Will they do it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it just, again, it's like I almost can't help but think of like, why did Oliver, like, it is kind, I feel like Oliver Stone thinks he's saying something important about football, and there are times where something comes across that is meaningful, but I don't think I don't think his brand of filmmaking and his brand of storytelling necessarily translate.
Yeah, I feel like this whole movie is like a 2.5 hour, with the director's cut. I think it was like, was it like 2 hours and 48 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
I can't remember what it was. I watched the director's cut this morning, but it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, like 100-piece jigsaw puzzle, and about 15 pieces have vibrant colors on them.
Yeah.
The rest is just, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about the teams for a minute?
Yeah.
How cheeseball are these team names? How bad are the names?
Well,
the Albuquerque Aztecs and the Dallas Knights, the Miami Sharks.
So I think part of it boils down to the fact that when you don't have the NFL participating in the movie,
right?
I think that's you kind of have to you basically have to make up shit, and it's like it basically
you go on Madden. You go on the Madden, go to create a team, and hit random, and be like, oh, Dallas Knights, here we go, random, Miami Sharks, ooh, that'd be the good for the lead, here we go.
Well, and supposedly this was sort of, this was to a certain extent, this was kind of inspired by the old USFL, which was in existence in the 80s briefly. And I mean, it just boils down to, but yeah, you're right. The team names and stuff are completely cheeseball.
Because they do mention the NFL in, because the mayor, I believe, says to her when they were having their Cameron Diaz's character that your team isn't doing as well as our NFL team. Yeah, like talking about Miami itself.
Yeah.
By the way, these names are cheesy and awful, but they're still better than the new XFL team names.
This is true.
What the hell is the St. Louis Battlehawk? Why not call it the Thundercats? Or the Robots?
I don't know.
I hate Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
I hate him. I love him so much for wrestling, but I hate him for everything else he does creatively. You know why the XFL is back? Apparently, Vince McMahon, someone approached him to buy the XFL name because they wanted the rights to it for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but it had nothing to do with starting the league up again. Well, Vince took that as like, oh, there's a vested interest in the XFL now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get it up and running again because he's an old senile bastard.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the XFL coming again, is because somebody asked to buy it, and he's like, there's interest.
Well, and the thing is, it's like you also had the AAFL that was in place earlier this year and played one season before it folded for a variety of financial reasons. But I think that was part of it.
There was actual AFFL?
Yeah, it was AFFL or AAFL or something like that. I don't remember. They started right after the Super Bowl this year. Went for like 10 weeks or something like that.
Oh, I think I missed it entirely.
I think that might be why McMahon. That might have been why the XFL was back, because the people who were trying to get that league up on the ground thought, oh, well, maybe we can do the XFL again. And I think that's what happened.
Maybe they wanted the XFL name.
I think that's probably what it was.
Okay, because I remember reading because I'm a nut for wrestling news and rumors.
Yeah.
And there was an article based around someone asked Vince to buy the property, and they weren't sure why back in like 2015.
Yeah.
And that's why he spent the last 4 years getting it up off the ground again.
Yeah.
It's gonna fail miserably.
Oh yeah.
Just like World League. Remember the World League football in the 90s?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got practically the entire set of football cards for that.
That's awesome.
From the inaugural year, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I have the XFL football that was in stores when the original XFL wasn't even the first game wasn't even played yet.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. We're straying from this.
We are, but I mean, honestly, there's honestly not a whole hell of a lot that I want. I have more to say about this movie.
I feel like some of the actors and actresses were kind of wasted. I feel Anne Margaret was there just for the sake of Anne Margaret to be in Oliver Stone's movie.
Right.
He probably had a crush on her growing up. You know, watching her dance at Viva Las Vegas and all that business, and. Or maybe they're friends in life. Who knows? But she was in it just for the sake of being in it.
Yeah.
Her role was basically to play a nonstop inebriated, drunk, she's coasting through life on her husband's fortunes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny. It's like her character in the movie remind me of Margaret Whitten's character from Major League.
Oh man.
And which is another movie that this movie kind of has some similarities to, because the whole point in Major League is, the team has to do well enough, or else the owner, played by Margaret Whitten, after her husband died, is going to move the team to, actually, I think it's Miami.
It is Miami.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a triple feature with basketball in any given Sunday.
Oh yeah. Charlton Heston is the commissioner of the league in this movie.
Yeah, I felt he was there for really no reason other than we got Charlton Heston.
Yep, basically.
I liked LL Cool J. His character was pretty cool.
Yeah,
you get it. He's not rushing up the middle anymore. He's not taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
He wants his yards, and I think it's a lot to do. He knows his time is limited, and he wants to get as much money as he possibly can.
Right.
He's going to play the game until he's done, but he's trying to get as much money as he can. And being that this was 1999, and they were the Miami Sharks, why wasn't there a quick, deepest, bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin moment?
That probably because they were in production the same time, and they wouldn't have. Oliver Stone doesn't necessarily stoop to that, even though he probably should.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been hilarious.
A quick, deepest, bluest, and just like left it at that.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious. It's kind of funny. We've been kind of bagging on the cinematography during the games. It's funny. The same director of photography later shot the Will Smith drama Concussion.
Oh, fascinating.
Which is a terrific movie.
Right.
But
I do like they did address the concussion issue with football players before it was a true major issue.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that people were aware of it, but they didn't really know what was going on until about 2009, 2010. They started making regulations.
Yeah, it was somewhere like that. Yeah,
maybe a little bit sooner.
Yeah, it was sometime like that. But no, I mean, and like I said, visually, especially when it comes to Taylor's character, the visual language for his dizziness and stuff like that is his how his vision seems to get blurry and stuff like that when it comes to concussions. I mean, I really like that aspect of this movie, and the way that they present it. It's just one of those things where it's like, overall the cinematography of this movie is just, especially when it comes to the on field, is just is not good.
No.
It doesn't have any focus. It doesn't have any perspective or anything like that, and
It feels like there was about 6 or 7 different filmmakers, each with their own little assignment.
Yeah.
And they had to film each segment, and then they edited them all together.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that before you rewatched this, you have had this as number one as far as your sports movies. What are some of your other favorite sports movies? Or what are some of your favorite sports movies now, I guess I should say, since we've kind of established that Any Given Sunday may not necessarily be on that list.
Yeah, it may have, just like Jamie Foxx's, Willie Beeman's character, it may have dropped 6 places in the draft here.
Yeah.
Rocky, man.
Yeah.
I still absolutely love Rocky. I watch it like every other year now,
mm-hmm.
and I can't get enough of it. I hate to say it because it's rather boring, but when I'm done with it, I love it. Hoosiers. I like Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Remember the Titans?
Mm-hmm.
As far as football goes, Varsity Blues. I'm a big fan of Varsity Blues.
Okay.
I get mocked for that one sometimes. Baseball movies, I did like Moneyball a lot, Major League, of course, but my all-time favorite baseball movie is The Sandlot.
Okay. Yeah.
Boxing. You can't beat Rocky for boxing. For football, I'm lost now. The Replacements is good. I didn't realize how much better The Replacements was than Any Given Sunday until today.
Yeah,
I'm going through some stuff from here, man. I'm lost.
The Replacements has always been a favorite of mine, especially as far as football movies, but just in general, I've always really liked it.
It's a fun ride. It's a
especially because of the fact that it deals with something I remember that strike year of 1987 where Scabs played very, very, very vividly, because that was like when I was really starting to pay attention to football.
Right.
So the fact that they, comedically retold that was pretty entertaining. Remember the Titans is another one that I absolutely love. Rocky, you can't really go wrong with Rocky. I mean, Raging Bull is a fantastic movie, but it's not as much. It doesn't have the sports cliches that Rocky does.
Hey, confession time. I've never seen Raging Bull.
Oh wow. Okay. It's, and you know what? I mean, it's not the easiest to sit through, but it's still a fantastic movie.
Awesome. It's one that I am not protesting it or anything. It's just, I've watched a few minutes of it. I've seen scenes, but it's usually because back in the day when Showtime wasn't on demand, or your cable wasn't on demand, like I'd switch it over to HBO or Showtime. Raging Bull would be on, but it'd be in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basketball is a part of one of my favorite.
I do love basketball. I do love basketball. That is such a fun movie, and it's because of the fact that like their sensibilities, like all of the sensibilities at work there, Parker and Matt Stone, Zucker, just fit so well with that subject matter, and just the absurdity of that entire thing is just absolutely wonderful.
That's the perfect word for it is absurdity.
Yeah. I love the Karate Kid. I mean, it's basically sort of Rocky Jr. to a certain extent, but it's always been a favorite of mine.
Yeah, the Karate Kid is fantastic.
Yeah.
Ready to Rumble. That is a movie I enjoy. It's a professional wrestling movie from 2000.
Yeah.
I guess it would be called one of those guilty pleasures. You know me, I don't think if I like a movie, I like a movie.
Yeah.
I'm not guilty. I don't feel guilty about it, but people would call it a guilty pleasure because it's garbage from almost every aspect of from the filmmaking to the writing. It's all garbage. But I still love watching it.
Right.
I absolutely. Oh, The Natural. It just popped in my head with Robert Redford.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic sports film.
Yeah, I haven't seen Bull Durham in a while.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Or what's the one with all the ladies?
League of Their Own.
Yes, that is really good too.
Is really wonderful as well.
There's nothing sadder than those moments when they're bringing in the telegram in the locker room in that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, and all the women are like, "Who's going to get it?"
Mm-hmm.
Because it's never good news.
Yeah.
There's sports. I feel like I'm kind of. Has there been in the last 10 years? Has there been a really good sports film that would be in the top 10? Well, besides Real Steel, of course.
I mean, hey, I actually did not. I actually liked Real Steel when I saw it.
It just was with me.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It just was.
I mean, other than Moneyball, I mean, there really isn't anything else. I mean, Moneyball is a different one because that's on the that's on the that's about the executives, but at the same time, it still has that. It still has that underdog feel.
Hey, here's a quick question. A little thing for you. What are some sports films that you hate? Or not necessarily full on hate, but did not appreciate, did not like, when it would never revisit it?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of what.
Is that a whole nother podcast in itself?
I need to think about it because it's like I'm trying to think if there are any that I genuinely actively dislike.
There's one for me that I cannot stand.
Okay.
And it's a big one that people love. And when I usually say that I don't like it and I can't stand it, I usually get a room full of people throwing things at me. It's Field of Dreams.
Oh wow!
I cannot stand that movie. I can't take it.
I don't think So I don't think I've ever seen Field of Dreams in its entirety.
Okay.
I need to give it a watch. Yeah, that's a big.
My stepfather loved that. I hated it from the start. I could not stand that movie. I did not want to watch it when we rented it. Yeah. And my stepfather loved it, and he wound up buying it. And I saw it probably 6 or 7 times throughout my childhood. Because we had one TV. We had one TV, and TV was my go-to for entertainment, and he had control of the what we watched.
Yeah.
When he was awake, so yeah, I couldn't stand it. I tried watching it 12 years ago. I still can't take it.
Let's see. Okay, let's see what.
But I did like Bull Durham, which is another Costner baseball movie.
Yeah.
And the Sam Raimi one he did with Costner when
For Love of the
Perfect Game. Oh, For the Love of the Game. That's
For Love of the Game. Yeah.
That one was. Yeah, I randomly saw that in theaters.
Okay.
It was just a spur of the moment. Hey, you want to see a movie? Sure. Why not this one? Okay, let's go. That was really good. I thought it was well done.
Seabiscuit is a really good one.
I have not seen it.
Okay. Rocky Balboa is really good.
Yes, it was.
Creed is really good.
I haven't seen the Creed movies.
Yeah, Creed. The first one in particular is really good. I have some issues with the second one, but it's overall I thought it was a good movie. I just brought up sports dramas on Box Office Mojo's. I mean we're Miracle about the 1980 U.S. hockey team. I really like.
Oh yeah. What's the Russell Crowe Alaskan hockey?
Oh, Mystery
movie?
Alaska.
Yes, that is a good one.
That was an entertaining one. Yeah.
That was it Russell Crowe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Slapshot. You can't go. You Slapshot, Caddyshack, the Slapshot, Caddyshack. You can't go wrong with those. And I like Caddyshack too. Yeah, I would pick Caddyshack 2 to watch over Field of Dreams. Eat it, audience at Sonic Cinema. Fight me, fight me.
I do like the Kenny Loggins song from Caddyshack 2. I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
We're totally straying from.
oh yeah, we're completely.
least
Yeah, I mean we're basically
we're done.
But the thing is, it's like we're talking about we're basically putting what we're doing with this, and part of the reason I asked you is because we're putting Any Given Sunday within the context of this particular genre, which ultimately it does fit in. It's just Oliver Stone is not necessarily somebody who belongs in that genre, and I think he took it way too. I think to a certain extent he takes it way too seriously. And I mean, even you one, and I'm looking at it on here, and one that I really enjoy is Blue Chips with Nick Nolte.
Is that the Shaq? The
Yeah,
Shaq
that's
movie?
the one with Shaq. That's about where he basically is a losing coach, and he essentially goes to buying blue chip players to try do
Get away
well.
from yeah,
But I mean, that
remember
one, that one's directed by William Friedkin, who did the fucking Exorcist and The French Connection, and it's like even that one is more entertaining. That one's more entertaining than what we get here.
Right.
And that is as much to say, if not more so. But yeah, so I mean we could go on. Like there's like it's such a sports movies and sports dramas in particular are just such a big genre. And I mean we could definitely go on about it. But yeah, I mean I don't really have anything more substantial to talk about as far as Any Given Sunday. I don't know if you do. I mean, I basically kind of said everything that I want to say on the movie.
Yeah, there's a couple things that we've kind of skipped over that I had on my notes, but it's little things like just like the character arc of Willie Beeman. But I liked his more than I like Cameron Diaz, even though they're kind of along the same lines. He started out a nervous nobody who's getting a chance in an NFL, or professional, not NFL, but a professional sports game, and he throws up and he finds out his talents are a lot better than he even imagined.
Yeah,
and then he gets this huge ego. He breaks up with his girlfriend because all that crap.
Yeah,
and then he gets humbled by the end again.
Mm-hmm. Well,
another humble.
I will say one of the things that I didn't touch on, but I wrote down in my notes, is that I do like that one of the important ideas in this movie is basically the idea of what it means to become a leader of men in sports. Right. And you talking about Willie Beeman's arc, it's like that's essentially what his arc is. Like how is he able to become a leader to where he can lead these players to success? And
right.
that is one of the best things. That is one of the important arcs of this movie, is whether he can do that or not.
Yeah, and the last thing I have to say, before I watched this film this morning, when I put the disc in, it was my number one favorite sports film of all time. And now it's behind The Waterboy for best football movie.
I need to rewatch The Waterboy. I never disliked it, but I just didn't love it. Well, I have issues with Adam Sandler in general. I've never been a big Adam Sandler fan.
I was until about 2004, 2005.
Okay. But yeah,
his first 10 years of movies, I was all about backing him, man. But it slowly trickled away.
Okay. Well, maybe we can have that discussion at some point, because that
no, let's have it now. Let's make this a 3 hour. Let's make this a 3 hour.
We can I mean
with a random 1 hour in there with Adam Sandler discussion.
we don't have to do that just now. We can do that later.
Oh okay. Or we can have time to prep.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Marv, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I always love talking movies with you. Sometime I gotta find my way down to your neck of the woods so we can actually watch something together.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Marv for joining me today to discuss Oliver Stone's movie. It's a movie that, as I mentioned on the podcast, I swear I saw at one point, but I'm not sure that I actually did. Um, it's a tough movie as a football fan to watch. It's definitely an interesting film in the career of Oliver Stone, but I don't think it was overly a successful one. We've got a lot coming up on the class of 1999. This is going to be a wild finish to the year. We have Michael Mann, Paul Thomas Anderson, David Lynch, Anthony Minghella, Doug Liman, Harold Ramis, Chris Smith, Chris Columbus, and a bunch of other ones. And I hope you join me in this wild last couple months of the year. And 2020 is going to be a break. There's still going to be. I'm still going to shoot for one episode a month at least, but it's definitely not going to be working at the breakneck pace that we have had this year, and certainly the past couple months. I need a break, and that's going to be fine. But join me on patreon.com/SonicCinema for more, as well as some early access reviews, as well as original content and blogs. And also join me. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema all these years. We're into our 15th year, and it's as rewarding as it's ever been. And I'm really looking forward to growing this, continuing to grow this website. And it's always an ever-going process. This is Brian Scuttle for Sonic Cinema. Thank you very much.